Chargers fan, today brings harsh truth, a spark of hope, and a surprise that could flip the season. A key piece went down early. Protection crumbled, but a young beast woke up and silenced half the league. There was an explosive run game ignored in the clutch, and a wideout once written off demanding respect. And from the locker room came a line nobody wanted to hear, right when the dream looked untouchable. Do you face reality with us, or stay in the comfort of illusion? You won't believe what we've got today. So take a seat, drop a like, and let's dive straight into the news. Starting with the shock in New York. 3 straight wins inside the AFC West had created a bubble of confidence, but the 21-18 score against an NFC opponent popped it all at once. The script of the game? A team that tried to bite late, a warrior quarterback under constant fire, and that nagging feeling that if one unit hadn't collapsed, we'd be celebrating another epic comeback. We can talk about silly penalties, drops, and failed execution in key moments, but the truth that screamed from the field was something else. There was a weak link exposed for everyone to see, and it opened the door for a Sunday that looked manageable to turn into a nightmare. The offensive line couldn't hold up. It wasn't just the injuries, it was the abrupt drop in level once the pieces fell. Joe Alt left in the first half, Rashawn Slater wasn't available, and Mekhi Becton remained in the concussion protocol. Result, Justin Herbert lived under pressure, route timing went out the window, and the game plan had to shrink. Jim Harbaugh, in a much more sober tone than in the first 3 weeks, acknowledged the front's performance wasn't close to his standard. It's tough to hear, but it's better to speak the truth than sugarcoat a problem that could cost dearly if it's not handled now. To be fair, few franchises would come out unscathed without 2 tackles of Alt's and Slater's caliber. Even so, the point that stings is another. Depth was missing. When the rotation needed Austin DeCulis and Jamari Sallier as crutches, protection fell apart, the run game lost push, and the offense became predictable. That doesn't erase the team's ceiling, it remains sky high, but it exposes the floor. If the foundation isn't reinforced, any gust knocks the house down. And it's not like this warning didn't flash in the offseason. It was there, and the loss only turned up the volume. From here on, the question is direct. Will it stay in words, or will real action follow? With fresh tape showing urgency, there are clear paths. Trade market for a competent swing tackle. A scan of the veteran free agent list with decent snaps on the resume. Scheme tweaks that protect the edges with constant chips, smarter use of motion to displace defenders, and more aggressive play action on first down to slow the pass rush. Herbert can carry a lot, but no one carries everything without time in the pocket. If the plan is to chase a title, the priority has to be protecting the roster's most valuable asset. The schedule helps and squeezes at the same time. It helps because it's still early, and 3-1 keeps the locker room focused, without panic. It squeezes because Alt is likely out for weeks. Becton's return depends on symptoms, and there's no clone of either one on the shelf. The bare minimum is to raise the floor now. Someone better than the emergency options, recalibrated protection, a reactivated ground game to avoid endless third and longs, and calls that speed up the release when the blitz comes hot. The fan wants answers, not promises, and the roster knows it. Championships aren't won in September, but they can slip away in the details. And that wasn't even the most surprising part of the day. There's a name on defense that just changed the conversation. If anyone decided to flip the script within the defense, that someone was Tuli. The name might still sound like a developing promise, but against the Giants, it sounded like a warning to the entire league. 4 sacks in one afternoon, dominating a solid offensive line and proving that even without Khalil Mack, the Chargers' pressure won't vanish. And it wasn't just the box score, it was the how. Explosion off the snap, gap reads with veteran maturity, and clean finishes that gave rookie Jackson Dart no chance. It's exactly what the fan base demanded, someone to keep the engine from stalling. Since Mack's injury, the fear was that the system would lose its heart. The pass rush is the nervous system of Harbaugh's 3-4 defense, and the absence of an icon could easily turn aggression into vulnerability. But Tuli stepped into the spotlight, and with that, the unit started breathing again. The most curious detail is that the supporting cast didn't seem ready to shoulder this burden. But Dupree brings pure experience but isn't the same as years past. Caleb Murphy and Kyle Kennard still need reps. So either Tuli elevated his level, or the defensive season could have derailed. And the impact goes beyond stats. The locker room felt it. When a young player shows he can carry the weight, the veterans respond, confidence spreads, and the secondary gains precious seconds to execute coverage. Unsurprisingly, even with early hiccups, the front 7 racked up 6 sacks in total, showing that the collective gears stayed engaged. Imagine if the offense had offered more support. We'd be discussing a win despite the absences, not a frustrating loss. Now a pressing question hangs. Can Tuli turn a one-off performance into a trend? If so, the Chargers can weather Mack's absence without losing their defensive identity. Better yet, they might have discovered a new pillar, a second nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. And let's be honest, this team has shown it knows how to improvise. The difference between falling or growing lies in the immediate response. Tuli's performance opens the door. It's up to the rest of the defense to walk through it with him. And while the defense proved it can still roar without its biggest star, The offense got stuck on a choice that's left the fan base scratching its head, because in the middle of protection chaos, there was a solution begging to be explored, and it was simply ignored. In the midst of an offensive line collapse, one detail screamed from the field: Omarion Hampton. The rookie, who'd been underused in the first weeks, responded with a 128-yard game on just 12 carries, an absurd 10.7 yards per attempt, and a touchdown that set the crowd on fire. Yet instead of riding that wave, the offensive plan insisted on limiting his role. The paradox is cruel. When he got going, the offense breathed. When he was shelved, the offense stalled. Jim Harbaugh's justification was clear. Without reliable protection, the team needed quick passes to compensate for the absences up front. Joe Alt out with an ankle injury, Becton in the concussion protocol, and the unit already starting at a disadvantage. But the math doesn't add up. If the opponent ranked 31st in rushing defense, why not lean even harder on the weapon that was working? Hampton was ripping through the Giants' defense each time he touched the ball, and every carry seemed to shout, "Give it to me again." This dilemma exposes something bigger. The Chargers' offense, built to be physical under Harbaugh, still hasn't found the balance between identity and improvisation. The head coach arrived with a reputation for prioritizing the run, but in a moment when everything pointed to unleashing the rookie, he chose aerial conservatism. To make matters worse, Herbert did produce good plays, but without consistent rhythm, penalties and constant pressure undermined any attempt at a comeback. In other words, the best escape valve was sidelined precisely when it could have been decisive. The fan base didn't forgive. On social media, the most repeated line was, 12 carries? That's a joke. And it's hard to disagree. Against a defense that vulnerable to the run, Hampton deserved at least twice the attempts. Each extra carry could have burned clock, protected Herbert from more hits, and put the Giants on their heels. Instead, sticking to the plan kept the opponent comfortable, allowed constant pocket pressure, and ended in a loss that felt avoidable. The takeaway is obvious. The offensive identity needs retooling now. In the next games against the Commanders, Dolphins, and Colts, there will be new opportunities to exploit shaky defenses. And if the Chargers want to turn Hampton into a centerpiece of the future, they need to start in the present. The rookie showed not only burst, but also cut vision, contact balance, and veteran-level poise. He's pure gold in a backfield that lost Najee Harris to an Achilles injury. Ignoring that potential could cost more than it already did at MetLife. And if the offense needs to rediscover its essence, there's another storyline that left fans speechless, because Hampton wasn't the only one who shined quietly. Another player, branded a disappointment since the draft, is flipping the script and starting to silence the critics once and for all. If the rookie Hampton set the field on fire with long runs, the one who stole the show through the air was Quentin Johnston. Yes, the same wideout many had already stamped as a bust since he arrived. Against the Giants, he didn't just show up, he imposed himself. 8 receptions, 98 yards, and a touchdown on a crisp route in a contested catch. The kind of play that separates ordinary receivers from those who embrace WR1 responsibility. Johnston didn't just ask for respect, he shouted that he deserves it. This performance didn't come out of nowhere. In previous weeks, there were flashes, but consistency was missing. That's exactly what stood out now. Every route had intent, every catch showed confidence. Herbert looked for him and he answered. The fan who doubted is beginning to cave, because what looked like a draft mistake is turning into a premium weapon. Maybe he's not yet a league-dominant WR, but today he's much more than a complementary piece. He's a protagonist. But a complicated game like this isn't built on good stories alone. Injuries continue to be the shadow chasing this team. Slater and Becton weren't on the field, Joe Alt went down, and the interior rotation was pushed to the limit. It's almost cruel to think that even with all that, the team still fought to the end, losing by only 3. That shows the roster didn't crumble mentally, but it also sends a warning. Patience with the lack of depth is running out. Moves in the market are inevitable, because there's no way to sustain a season at this rate of attrition. What's most impressive is the resilience. In a game marked by Herbert turnovers, odd offensive decisions, and a defense that had lapses against a rookie quarterback, the Chargers still had life at the end. That says a lot about the team's potential. At the same time, it reinforces the warning: without immediate fixes, errors stack up, confidence can crack, and what looks like a stumble can become a pattern. Harbaugh knows it, the players know it, and the fan base feels the urgency in their bones. The good news is the record remains positive, 3-1, with important division wins. The bad news is that this loss can't just be tossed aside as an accident, because it exposed open wounds and at the same time revealed raw diamonds ready to shine. It's on the staff to choose bet on these young pieces and reinforce where it's thin, or risk watching the season slip through their fingers. With so many emotions in play, one question remains that only time will answer. Was this the stumble that woke the Chargers up for the title chase, or a warning that hints at something more troubling? One thing's certain, the battle is just getting started. Chargers fans, take a breath because this roller coaster isn't over. The message from New York was harsh but packed with lessons. The offensive line became a real problem, and Harbaugh made it clear he won't pretend everything's fine. Tuli showed he can inherit the pass rush mantle while Mack is out. Hampton proved he has the juice to carry the offense on the ground, and Johnston finally embraced the leading role the fan base demanded. Between stumbles and sparks, it's crystal clear this team has a championship ceiling, but it only gets there if it turns mistakes into action. Then now it's your turn. Was this just a brief stumble or the sign of bigger issues? What should the Chargers fix first? The offensive line, the offensive game plan, or immediate reinforcements on the market? Drop your take in the comments. And of course, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell, because here we break down every detail of our road to the Super Bowl, like friends talking ball at the bar. Let's go together. The season is just getting started.